5-year-old Mia asks to go to a cemetery, and when she arrives, she points at a grave. Grace and Benjamin lived in a small but cozy house with their 6-year-old daughter Mia. She was their pride and joy, obedient, adorable, and always bringing laughter to the family. But lately, Grace couldn't deny a strange change in her daughter. Mia was no longer as carefree as before. She would often sit alone for hours quietly scribbling on sheets of paper, mumbling things no one could understand. Once, Grace caught her daughter sitting by the window, her big round eyes staring intently into the distance as if waiting for someone. "My love, what are you looking at?" Grace sat down beside her, gently stroking her soft hair. Mia turned to her, her innocent eyes carrying a hint of something unfamiliar. "Mom, I want to go there," she said, pointing toward the distant hills, the cemetery. A chill ran down Grace's spine. "What cemetery?" she asked, frowning. "I don't know." Mia tilted her head, her voice soft but certain. "But I know the way there." Grace shuddered. "Who told you about that place?" Mia smiled a strange smile that made Grace feel uneasy. "No one. I just remember." That evening, when Benjamin came home after a long day working at the local mill, Grace immediately told him what had happened. "I'm worried, Benjamin. Mia has never said things like this before." Benjamin chuckled, pulling his wife into an embrace and gently patting her shoulder. "Honey, kids have vivid imaginations. She's probably been reading too many fairy tales." But it didn't seem like Mia was imagining. She was so certain. Grace tightened her grip on the teacup in her hands. "Don't you think it's strange?" Benjamin sighed, kissing his wife's forehead. "Don't overthink it. I'll talk to Mia." The next morning, as sunlight filtered through the window, Benjamin sat beside Mia and gently asked, "Sweetheart, can you tell Daddy why you want to go to the cemetery?" Mia didn't look up. She just continued drawing on a blank sheet of paper a figure of a man standing among gravestones. "Because I have to go there." "Did someone tell you to?" Mia shook her head. "No one, but I know I have to go." Benjamin raised an eyebrow, suppressing the discomfort creeping into his chest. "Do you know where this cemetery is?" Mia nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, it's far, but I know the way." Benjamin glanced at his daughter's drawing. The man in the picture wore a long robe, standing among broken tombstones with hollow eyes. That evening, Grace invited Anna, their friendly neighbor, over for dinner. Anna was a kind-hearted middle-aged woman who always looked out for Grace's family. When she heard the story, she frowned, her expression serious. "This is not normal, Grace," Anna spoke in a low voice. "Maybe Mia is seeing something that we can't." "What do you mean?" Grace asked, bewildered. Anna slowly put down her spoon. "There are restless spirits, Grace, especially in places where death came too soon." "Oh, come on, Anna, don't scare my wife," Benjamin laughed, though the sound was forced. Anna looked at Benjamin, her gaze solemn. "I'm not trying to scare anyone. If Mia is really being led by someone or something, you need to be careful." Grace gripped her husband's hand tightly. "What should we do?" Anna thought for a moment. "For now, just watch her closely. If she keeps mentioning the cemetery, try asking more questions. There might be a reason she's so fixated on it." After dinner, when Anna had gone home, Benjamin and Grace tucked Mia into bed. But just as they were about to leave her room, Mia spoke. "Mom, Dad." Benjamin turned back. "What is it, sweetheart?" Mia looked at them, her expression strangely calm. "He's coming soon." Grace shuddered. "Who, baby?" Mia didn't answer immediately. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to a voice only she could hear. Then in a whisper, as soft as the wind, she said, "Mr. Anthony." Benjamin woke up in the middle of the night. Something was wrong. The house was eerily silent. He sat up, stepped out of the room, and looked down the hallway. Mia's door was slightly ajar, and a sense of unease rose in his chest. Slowly, Benjamin walked toward it. Mia was sitting on her bed, her wide eyes fixed on the window. A sudden chill ran through him. Outside, in the dim darkness, a shadowy figure stood still. Benjamin rushed forward, yanked the curtains open, but outside, there was nothing, only the wind and the night. "Mia, what did you see?" The little girl turned to him, her dark eyes deep and unreadable. Her voice, soft yet echoing like a distant whisper, said, "He was standing there, looking at me, and he called me Isabel." Benjamin felt the blood in his veins turn to ice. His whole life, he had never believed in the supernatural, but right now, as he stared into his daughter's eyes, a primal fear crept into his mind. Just as he shut the window, a faint chilling laughter drifted in on the night wind. Darkness settled over the village like a thick shroud, swallowing everything in an eerie stillness. Only the soft rustling of the wind outside the window could be heard, like someone whispering in the night. Grace lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. A relentless unease gnawed at her. She turned to Benjamin. He was asleep, his breathing steady, but his face was tense. Clearly, what had happened with Mia had shaken him, but Benjamin was a rational man. He didn't want to believe in the supernatural. He wanted to explain everything with logic, with reason. But what reason was there? How could a 6-year-old child know the name Mr. Anthony? Grace shuddered, and then a scream rang out sharp, terrified. Mia screamed. Grace bolted upright, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. She leaped out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold wooden floor as she raced down the hall. Mia's door was wide open, and Mia was sitting up in bed, her eyes wide, her face ghostly pale. Her whole body trembled. Benjamin burst into the room, his voice frantic. "Mia, what happened?" Mia gasped for breath, clutching her blanket so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She stared toward the window, then in a voice so small it was almost a whisper, she trembled and said, "He was standing there, looking at me." Grace froze. Benjamin immediately strode to the window, yanking the curtains open. Outside, there was only darkness and the trees swaying in the wind. "There's no one there, Mia," he tried to reassure her, but his voice wavered slightly. "You just had a bad dream, sweetheart." Mia shook her head. "It wasn't a dream, Daddy. He was there, and he called me Isabel." A chill ran down Grace's spine. She knelt beside her daughter, holding her tightly. "Sweetheart, tell me, what did you see?" Mia blinked, her lips trembling. He was wearing a long black robe. His face was pale, his eyes had no pupils. Grace felt her entire body freeze. Mia gasped for breath, her voice barely more than a whisper, carried on the wind. "He said it's time." Benjamin clenched his jaw, trying to stay calm. "Mia, listen to me. There was no one out there. No one can call you. It's just your imagination, my love." Mia turned to look at Benjamin, her eyes innocent yet strangely distant. "It's not my imagination, Daddy. I heard him clearly. It was like he was standing right next to my bed." Grace shuddered, tightening her embrace around Mia. She could feel her daughter's rapid breathing, her tiny heartbeat pounding wildly like a frightened bird caught in a storm. "Daddy, don't you believe me?" Mia whispered. Benjamin took a deep breath, running his hand through her hair, his voice dry. "I believe you, sweetheart, but I won't let anyone hurt you. No one can come near you." Mia was silent for a long time, then she turned her face toward the window and whispered, "But he's still standing there." The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was heavy and suffocating. Grace had barely slept, and even though Benjamin tried to act normal, he couldn't hide the tension in his face. Anna came to visit again. The moment she stepped inside, she frowned. "The air in this house feels heavy," she muttered. Grace pulled her into the kitchen, telling her everything that had happened during the night. When she finished, Anna's face was pale. "Listen to me, Grace," she said, her voice grave. "I've lived in this village for over 40 years. I've heard many stories, but never have I heard of a child being called by a spirit like this." Grace gripped Anna's hand. "Do you think it's really a spirit?" Anna hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Have you ever heard the name Mr. Anthony?" Anna flinched, her eyes widening. "The child said that name?" Grace swallowed hard and nodded. Anna squeezed Grace's hand tightly, her voice dropping to a whisper as if afraid someone might overhear. "Grace, that name should never be spoken. But you know who he is, don't you?" Anna glanced toward the window, her gaze distant. For a long time, she was silent. Then in a hushed voice, she said, "More than 100 years ago, there was a man named Mr. Anthony who lived in this village. He was a wealthy nobleman, but also a cruel one. People say he did things that could never be forgiven." What things? Grace's grip tightened. Anna looked at her, her eyes heavy with something unreadable. He used to kidnap young girls, and they were never seen again. Grace felt her chest tighten. They say one of those girls was named Isabel Parker. A shiver ran down Grace's spine. Anna continued in a whisper, and in the end, the villagers discovered the truth. He was executed, but there was a curse. What curse? Anna clasped her hands together tightly. Before he died, he swore that he would never leave and that the souls who were reborn would always belong to him. Grace's heartbeat pounded wildly in her ears. If Mia really is Isabel reborn, then he may have come back to claim her. Grace couldn't breathe. She remembered last night. He had been standing there. He had called for her child, and he had said, "It's time." Grace's hands trembled. Outside the window, the wind howled, rustling the dry leaves. But in Grace's ears, she heard a faint, eerie laughter. Not Anna's, not Benjamin's, but someone else's, someone who was waiting. Everything changed after that night. The atmosphere inside Grace and Benjamin's small house grew oppressively heavy. Though no one spoke of it, they could all feel an invisible presence, something unseen watching them. Grace felt uneasy every time she walked down the hallway, as if unseen eyes were following her. Benjamin, though he continued to dismiss everything, had started to sleep restlessly. But the most terrifying change was in Mia. She was no longer the carefree child she once was. Mia became more withdrawn, quieter. Sometimes she would sit for hours on the floor, her gaze distant and unblinking. And when Grace or Benjamin called her, it would take a few seconds for her to respond, as if her mind was drifting somewhere else, somewhere that did not belong to this world. One late afternoon, Grace was preparing dinner when she heard a soft rustling sound from the living room. She glanced over. Mia was sitting on the rug, holding a pencil, drawing on a blank sheet of paper. Grace exhaled in relief. At least she was doing something normal for a child. But as she stepped closer, her chest suddenly tightened. Mia wasn't drawing flowers. She wasn't drawing their little dog, Max. She wasn't drawing their family like she usually did. She was drawing a cemetery, and in the middle of the page was a single grave with a name scrawled across it, Isabel Parker. A cold chill spread through Grace's body. "Mia," she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "What are you drawing?" Mia looked up, her dark eyes staring at her mother. "A picture. But you've never been to this place, have you?" Mia tilted her head as if Grace's question was too naive. "I remember." A shiver ran down Grace's spine. She stared at the drawing. In the bottom right corner of the page, Mia had drawn a shadowy figure standing silently, its eyes hollow, its face ghostly pale. Grace swallowed hard. "And this person? Who is he?" Mia blinked. Then in a voice so soft it was nearly a whisper, she answered, "Mr. Anthony." That night, Benjamin felt his throat go dry as he stood in the bathroom, staring into the mirror. His reflection stared back at him, but something was off. It was as if something was standing right behind him. Benjamin spun around. Immediately, nothing, just an empty wall. He took a deep breath and turned back to the mirror. This time, his heart nearly burst out of his chest. The bathroom door behind him was slowly creaking open, but the most terrifying part, there was no one there, only darkness, a deep hollow darkness as if it were trying to swallow everything whole. A cold sweat broke across Benjamin's skin. He quickly shut the door, telling himself it was just his imagination. But just as he turned to leave, bang! The bathroom door suddenly slammed open, hitting the wall with a force that made Benjamin jump. A cold wind, heavy with the scent of damp decay, seeped out from within. And at that moment, he heard footsteps right behind him. But when Benjamin turned around, there was no one there. The next morning, Grace discovered scratches on Mia's arm, red marks stretching from her wrist all the way up to her elbow. Grace gasped, grabbing her daughter's arm. "Mia, who hurt you?" Mia blinked, her voice disturbingly calm. "No one." "Then where did these come from?" The little girl was silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "At night, he holds me." Grace felt her stomach twist into knots. She immediately ran to find Benjamin, only to find that he was dealing with something just as horrifying. "Grace!" Benjamin's voice was low, his hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Grace followed his gaze and froze. In the middle of the living room, on the wooden floor, was a trail of wet footprints leading from the window straight into Mia's bedroom. Anna arrived soon after. The moment she saw the footprints, she went pale. "Do you believe us now?" Benjamin nearly shouted. "Do you still think this is all in our heads?" Anna didn't answer. She slowly stepped forward, kneeling to examine the footprints. Then she inhaled deeply, her voice trembling. "These footprints do not belong to the living." Grace and Benjamin exchanged a look. Anna continued, her voice barely more than a breath. "The dead cast no shadow, and their footprints never dry." Right then, bang! A deafening crash erupted from Mia's room. Grace screamed, sprinting toward her daughter's door. "Mia, open the door!" Grace pounded on it, tears spilling down her face. No answer. But from inside, a whisper, "It's time." Grace's breath hitched. That voice, it wasn't Mia's. Benjamin rushed forward, throwing his full weight against the door. With a forceful kick, the door burst open. Inside, Mia was still sitting on her bed, smiling, but her eyes were empty. And on the wall, scrawled in a dark, viscous liquid, was a message, "Isabel, I have found you." No one in the house slept that night. Grace sat beside Mia, her eyes wide, watching her daughter. Mia was fast asleep, her breathing steady, but the healthy pink in her cheeks was gone. She looked pale, almost ghostly. Grace gently brushed her hand over Mia's forehead, her heart clenching as she remembered the words on the wall. That name had her like a curse. Benjamin leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his face tense. He had never been one to believe in ghosts or spirits, but after everything that had happened, he could no longer deny it. Finally, Grace spoke, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "We can't let this continue." Benjamin took a deep breath. "What do you mean?" "Mia knows too much about Isabel Parker, too much for a 6-year-old child. She even mentioned Mr. Anthony, a name Anna said should never be spoken." Grace paused, her eyes brimming with tears. "Benjamin, if we don't do something, he's going to take her." Benjamin gripped his wife's hand tightly. He didn't want to believe it, but there was no logical explanation for these strange events anymore. Anna spoke up, her voice grave. "There is only one way. Take Mia to the cemetery." Benjamin frowned. "You want us to do what? Take our daughter to some abandoned graveyard in the middle of the night just because of things that aren't real?" Anna locked eyes with him. "If it's not real, then why did he leave footprints in your house? Why does Mia have scratches on her arms? Why did her bedroom door slam shut on its own? And why was Isabel's name written on the wall?" Benjamin had no answer. Grace squeezed his hand. "You know she's right." Benjamin closed his eyes, clenching his fists. He hated admitting this, but now there was no other choice. He exhaled sharply. "We're going." That night, under the pale glow of the moon, they left the house. Mia sat silently in the middle seat. She no longer laughed, no longer called for her mother, no longer reached out for her father's embrace. She simply sat there, her wide eyes staring out the window. Anna sat in the front seat, gripping a rosary tightly in her hands, whispering prayers under her breath. Grace turned to her daughter. "Mia, are you sure you know the way to the cemetery?" Mia nodded. "I know." The car moved through the village's old cobblestone streets, past empty fields stretching into the darkness. The night air was bitterly cold, thick with dampness. Slowly, the paved road disappeared, giving way to a rough dirt path. On either side, withered trees stood like skeletal hands clawing at the night sky. Suddenly, Mia spoke. "We're here." Benjamin slammed on the brakes. Before them lay an old cemetery. A rusted iron gate stood at its entrance, and tombstones covered in moss and ivy stretched beyond it. The air was heavy, eerie, silent, except for the wind whistling through the bare branches. Grace swallowed hard, turning to her daughter. "Are you sure?" Mia said nothing. She simply opened the car door and stepped out. Grace and Benjamin rushed to follow her. Mia's small footsteps led them deeper into the cemetery, past rows of ancient graves. The sensation of being watched sent chills down Grace's spine. Then Mia stopped in front of a single grave. A cracked, weathered tombstone stood before them, its hand-carved inscription faded with time. "Isabel Parker, died in 1823. Grace suddenly felt the ground beneath her feet turn ice cold. Benjamin stared at the gravestone, feeling as if his entire body had frozen. Mia knelt down, reaching out to touch the stone. Her small fingers traced over the carved letters as if they were something familiar. Then she lifted her head, her wide eyes unblinking. "He's coming." The wind howled, tree branches rattled violently, dry leaves swirling into the air like a vortex. Anna stepped back, clutching the rosary tightly in her hands. "Dear God, this can't be happening." Benjamin pulled Grace into his arms, shielding her and Mia. "Mia, step back." But Mia didn't move. She kept staring into the darkness ahead, her gaze empty. Something was coming from the shadows. A figure emerged through the mist, a tall, looming silhouette, a long black robe draping to the ground, a pale face with eyes devoid of pupils.